In a world where dreams collide, Sarah's voice a gentle guide. Through the realms of time and space, she takes us to a sacred place.
I was wondering if you could look into what apparently is another Valley of the Kings in Egypt where there are extraterrestrials buried there. Is this even true? And is there another, what you want to call, Valley of the Kings with burial site of extraterrestrial giants?
That is true. There is a Valley of the Kings. We put that in quotations. And this has to do with the reverence that the local people in Egypt felt for those that helped and assisted them in building the pyramids and building what many of you know to be Egypt today, which is still being uncovered. But yes, there is very similarly to how they would embalm and embody the very beautiful parts of the pharaohs and their families when they passed away, when there were individuals from the extraterrestrial systems that passed away when their time had come, or if there was a crash landing or something like that where they passed away unexpectedly, they would bury them in what they called sort of a replica Valley of Kings to pay homage to them and again thank them for all they did to help them become who they were.
And how close is this to the other Valley of the Kings?
So I'm seeing that it's almost down the middle. So there's they're showing me that there's pyramids, and if you they're almost thought like a sea of sand in the middle of these pyramids, but towards the back of them. So the tail end of where the pyramids are, and then they're showing me like a sea of sand that would flow down the center line of the majority of how these pyramids are conglomerated. And they, essentially the sea of sand, they created the Valley of the Dead there, and that again is to do with the extraterrestrial beings.
So does it look like it's then in Cairo, or is it like more closer to like Aswan, where the other Valley of the Kings is?
So I'm not getting that, but when you say Cairo, that doesn't feel right. So
Okay.
I feel like it's closer perhaps to the other Valley of the Kings.
Okay, wow. Okay. And did these are there a bunch of different giants buried there? Like, did some look more extraterrestrial like than human, or did they all look human?
No, some looked very alien-like. So they're saying that there are giants there, but they're actually kind of laughing because there's actually like aliens that are so small, like really, really small, like that you would describe as like almost like smaller than a short person, like or a little person as we would describe it in today's terms. There's aliens that are that small. So it is not just the giants. It is aliens of all varieties, and some aliens actually chose to leave their bodies after they had helped Egypt and Earth's plane, because they had felt like that was sort of the culmination of what their spirit had been incarnated to do. So they could have gone back to their planet and lived for many, many more years because they had a longer lifespan than humans did. But some of them were not so much based to ego, but just based to such a sense of purpose and connection with the people that they helped, really ended up feeling like their spirit resided so heavily in that land and with those people that they chose to cross. So their body wasn't tired, and their body wasn't like, it wasn't demanding that they left, but they had decided rather than go home to their home planet that they would cross over and leave their body there to be buried sort of amongst the work that they did and with the people that they fell in love with.
Wow. Okay. So if you look back on the history there, does it look like any of these giant extraterrestrials were actually like cruel and used humans as slaves? Is that whole story made up, or is that true?
I'm seeing that is not true. So they're showing these giants wrapped in chains and being like almost like abused, like a people, and they're showing actually that there was a point where it looks like some Egyptians did down the road get a hold of them and have them almost chained up like we would see like elephants or something now, and abusing them and using them for like hard labor. And they're showing that is just sort of how they feel like their legacy is causing them to still feel like they're bonded or wrapped in chains because people view them as these scary individuals or that did harm others, and they did not. That I'm showing very clearly that the giants in Egypt were a very loving group of individuals, and if anything, they at one point were mistreated.
And if you look even further back, were there really Anunnaki that came here that created slaves out of humans? Is that story even true? Okay.
So I'm not sure if it's connected to the Anunnaki, but they're saying clearly that multiple times throughout history that slaves have been created from humans, that humans do that obviously, but there have been extraterrestrials that have come and also used humans as slave labor, and they sometimes did it in a way that at first was very sneaky. So they would assimilate into the culture or offer some sort of resource that they, hadn't yet come upon easily or knew how to use. So like if we even look at like light sources, they would show them how to harness the power of the sun so they could light things, or some individuals even like, easier ways to start fire, and they would make it at first like they would seem to be helping these individuals and then sort of put them under their spell. And out of what happens so often with human hearts is there's just this greed and this need to achieve or accumulate more or want power. And so they kind of would tell them, will you do this and we'll teach you more. And really what ended up happening is that they were using humans as slaves for pulling resources from the land that they wanted, or to build like homages to them because they had a lot of vanity or ego associated with them. So unfortunately, going back to almost the dawn of mankind, there has been this ability for humans to be used in that way.
So do humans then have like some sort of faulty DNA where we are, like if you look at a human right now, I know we program ourselves, I guess, or maybe we have a lot of negative influence programming us, but we're so used to like just working.
We, in this culture, they're saying in North America especially, that has been like ingrained in us, that there's places like Korea and Japan where same thing, where it's all about the work and achievement. But there's other places, they're showing me spots in Australia who do better with work-life balance. But yes, it has become sort of the way to show human success is to drive for this achievement or wealth or status. And what they're trying, and what I say it's all of the individuals that are coming through from the other side, from above in the planetary realm to try to help evolve humans, is for us to recognize that you don't need any of that everything that you need resides in yourself. But it's a chain, it's a pattern essentially that has to be broken. So when we talk about generational trauma, they say that is something that goes so deep back into like the early days of humans. And so it's a really difficult thing to change, but that is something that they're working towards, because that is all part of this shift.
Well, was it changed by these Anunnaki? I mean, didn't the Anunnaki mutate our genes and like program us to be slaves, or is that not true?
No, I'm not seeing that was true. They're saying we all have free will, and that there is a component of being accepting to having this influence, even if it's not such a conscious decision sometimes. But you do have free will, and that they were not manipulating that way. It was more manipulating. Okay, so they're saying you don't have to do that. They're like, it's quite easy to manipulate humans just through emotion, through fear, through, again, almost like dangling gold in front of their eyes and, putting something there for them to run to. So they said you don't have to do any gene mutation, essentially, with humans, that humans through the dawn of time are just so very easily influenced.
But did they do gene mutations? Is that story true or is that not true? Like, did they alter our genes?
That is not resonating with me at all.
Okay.
Except for they're saying that there was some connection, like romantic connection between some of them and the humans, and there was a sharing of genes that way, but there wasn't a gene mutation. No.
Wow. Okay. And now, like, where are the Anunnaki?
They said they're just on the other side of the veil, so they are essentially still watching over the planet to sort of see what's going to happen here. That their energy is still here, and they're sort of like, all I'm seeing is that they're just beyond the veil, still watching what's going to happen and how their interplay in our growth and what they did, how it's all playing out. So they're watching over, but I'm not seeing that they're currently incarnated here. But again, there's some DNA that they've left here through, far back in time when they were here on Earth.
Do they seem like nefarious, or do they seem like they're actually helping us now, or like what's their status? We're just curious.
I think their status is more of an observer at the moment versus being anything beyond that. They're saying like they did their part they played their role essentially, and they've done what they were asked to come and do or had chartered to come and do. And so now they're just observing how this all plays out and how humans like evolve and, continue.
So they knew, like, they were actually playing a role where then was it helpful then? Like, who, like, I guess I'm just really curious. Like, did they just get the okay, like, you guys can go be jerks and all that stuff? Like, I don't know.
So they're saying that essentially everyone here on Earth plays a role, and that we're all characters in the big giant play, which is what they're referencing here. And so even on their planet and from where they come, they have to reconcile with some of their behavior that, some of them overstepped, and that wasn't the initial plan or the purpose necessarily. But, again, it's very hard for our human minds to comprehend, but there would have been some need or benefit to the negativity. There's such a balance to the negative and positive, as we know. So even the terrible things that were done or that they influenced or brought to our planet did, in the end, will perpetuate the growth of our system.
And is it true they wanted gold? Like, they were looking for gold? Why wouldn't they just make it themselves?
So as we've talked about in the past, there are individuals who know how to alchemize and can make gold through alchemy. They did not have that understanding or the resources to do that. So they felt the only way that they could get gold essentially was to mine it. And that's why they were here. They lacked that understanding. So they're showing me that even to our conversation that we had before the session started about personalities that you met through some of your work, that not everybody has it all. And these individuals may have had insights into practices that humans hadn't learned yet, but they didn't know how to do alchemy like some other extraterrestrials did. So they felt that the only way they could get their hands on the gold was to mine it.
Okay. Is the story about or Zachariah Sitchin wrote this, I guess he was able to decode tablets or something. is his interpretation of the Anunnaki correct? Zachariah Sitchin's?
They're telling me that he got some things correct, but not to take everything as fact. That, you know, some individuals who write these books they're getting glimmers essentially of information, but they're not getting the full accurate picture, and they take a lot of liberal creativity in their storytelling. And they're saying that there are truths to be found in his works, but that not all of it is accurate.
What would they like to say is the most inaccurate part?
If there's something to do with like the war between extraterrestrials and not just between the humans and the extraterrestrials, but extraterrestrials upon extraterrestrials, like there was a battle there that has been misrepresented or not captured properly or not captured fully. And they're wanting to say that, you know, very clearly that there is so much that went on between all of these parties for battle of maintaining harmony, battle of resources. So there were other individuals coming from other planets that also wanted resources here, and they were trying to kick out those individuals because they wanted to harness and like capitalize on what we had here, and felt like they spread a sense of scarcity. And they're saying that maybe that message wasn't fully like developed, or that concept wasn't fully developed. And so that would be one thing that they said, that there would be a lot of growth and benefit to exploring, that there in that his work, that there seems to be a focus on a narrow focus, I guess they're saying, on certain groups. But there were a lot of groups beyond the Anunnaki that were coming here wanting our resources and minerals and all of that back in that day. And so there was quite a battle going on, and it seems to be focused heavily on just a few of those groups, but that there was a lot more to behold.
And how did it all stop? Like, how come, like, humanity wasn't completely taken over?
So they're showing it was almost similar to what's happening now, where there are... Sorry, just a sec. Guinness.
That's okay.
No. Guinness. There's an Amazon delivery. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
I'm back in my zone. That's jarring. Okay. Essentially similar to what is happening now, where there is a surrounding of influences from the other side in planetary systems, and they're actually showing me that it's almost like scolding, like a parent scolding a child, that they're showing me that some leaders would zip in from other planets and like basically give their kids a spanking and be like, this is not what we asked you to come and do. We asked you to come and get resources. We didn't ask you to do it this way. You're starting a war here. And so there was wise enough counsel within these planets and the coalition and shared understanding of the way to and to not interact with other planetary realms, that you know, there's almost sort of a way of going about things that these young kids weren't adhering to. And so these wise elders were able to come in and set things straight again.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Very, very interesting. So that's happening now?
It's happening now, as far as they're laughing at us. We wish we could come in and spank a bunch of you.
Seriously.
Like,
seriously.
I know a few. No, we have to do this all in this like way where they're like, you almost have to believe you're doing this yourself. Like, we can guide and we can, you have free will, but we're doing everything we can to wrap this planet with love and send this healing energy. And they said they're working through those of us. They're pointing right now to you and me, Sarah, who are open to accepting their messages and their love and their guidance. And through people like us, they're more easily able to spread their messages and try to shift the consciousness, and it's working.
Oh, that's great. Okay. All right, I have questions now about the Sisterhood of the Rose. So it seems like they're, okay, I want to know everything about that.
So they're showing me right away a visualization of a flower, and just that is essentially how women work. Like our bodies open like flowers, our wombs, they are like flowers. They birth all these beautiful things. That everything to do with flowers resonates very heavily with women and has a lot to do with our femininity. And even like if you think about the oils that are produced from a flower, that, just those scents like jasmine and rose oil and things like that, they're so powerful, and that they actually can be used to draw men in and like sexually like attract the divine feminine. And that those women knew how to sort of capitalize on everything to do with essentially the divine feminine. And they worked heavily with flower oils, with flower scents. They knew that within each flower was God's essentially, I don't want to say they're like, yes, DNA, but also the way that I'm not a scientist. They're showing me that every like plant and flower, there's all a very beautiful sort of geometrical pattern to them all. And then they understood that. They understood how to connect with that sacred geometry, essentially.
The Fibonacci sequence, I think it is.
Okay, I'm glad you know. Okay. There we go. So they understood that, and they connected with that, and they were able to capitalize is the wrong word, but harness the power that comes to the divine feminine and working together. They're showing me a connection just in the sort of similar sense of supporting women to the women in Avalon, that these women supported one another and really, again, harnessed the divine feminine. But they were more revered. Where women in Avalon had to hide and go into hiding, these women felt like they could be more forthcoming with their powers. Again, not fully, because, anytime anyone shows the full scope of their powers, it seems like other human beings want to take them down, especially in the past, because they're afraid of their power and they want to remain in power. But they also understood that, and they worked with the men in power, again, with these essential oil scents from flowers to influence them and really, again, use their sexual prowess to sway some of these men in power to make decisions that would be more leaning towards the feminine attributes that would be more beneficial for society, more the gentle sort of mothering that would be better for society as a whole.
How did they get started? Like, when did the Sisterhood of the Rose start? And why?
So it's looking like it's been around for quite some time. I'm seeing that these women were, there was an influence in Egypt from them. I'm seeing them there. I'm seeing them in Europe, in more of like England, Scotland, that type of area. I can clearly see them. There's a connection to them and the Templars. So there's, again, information that's been passed down through that pathway. And I think from what I'm getting, the reason that it started was that there just was, again, a recognition of the power of the feminine attributes, and that they wanted to ensure that that was solidified and strengthened, and that you do that through connecting with other women and then safeguarding that information, because they were smart enough, had the foresight to, again, recognize that women would be suppressed, that they clearly understood what was coming, but wanted this information not to be lost and to be safeguarded.
Okay, what information do they want to bring back then that they didn't want lost?
so they're saying like almost everything. They're just like everything to do with the woman, with our bodies, with the way that our minds think, with the way that we feel, with the way, again, they're showing that we can influence men. And they're not saying that we influence them, like put a spell on them and have them do things that are, like against their will or not for the betterment of mankind, but for the betterment, because men need to step into a little bit more of that femininity as well. And you know that, Sarah, we've talked about how those men can be more like the divine masculine, but that they had to hide that and do it in a quiet way, because men for the longest time were just driven by ego and didn't want to feel like they were influenced in any way by femininity. And now we are able to step back into that and open that up again and influence in a shared, more harmonious way. So there's like showing me like energy going back and forth, but it's an opening. It's like a flowering again. So like they're showing that the flower had closed and almost had become like a bud and was like hiding the feminine energy. But now it's opening up again and feeling safe to come forth with all of the wonderful things that feminine human beings can share.
Oh, okay, that's beautiful. In Atlantis, during Atlantean times, did the Atlanteans know the history of Mars? Like, is it depicted anywhere?
They're telling me that there was an understanding of the planetary systems, because there was, again, extraterrestrial influences, and they would have navigated those planetary systems to come to Earth. And so they would have an understanding of not just Mars, but all of the planets within not only our solar system, but beyond. And we're able to like draw those out. And so they're showing me there was like parchment scrolls and pictures showing the planetary systems almost in, I don't know if you've ever been to LA. There's like the Griffith Observatory there. They're showing me like a dome-like structure like that in Atlantis, where they really they had these parchments up of the planetary systems and dedicated that space to the planets and harnessing. They said that they even would like just the alignment of planetary systems alone. They understood something there again about the power of the grid lines between certain planetary systems and how that energy line can influence the energy of the Earth. Or if you think about it, they're showing me in your mind's eye that you can almost time travel through, like hop to from our planet to other planets, not physically, but through your mind. And it has to do with aligning with that energy. So they knew that. They kept it sacred. Not everyone in Atlantis did, but there were people in higher positions that were aware of this, and that information was passed down and kept in this sort of dome-like structure.
And did they know about like the past when people left Mars and went to Earth? Like, did they know about like people having past lives in Mars and stuff like that?
They're showing me that they didn't, I want to say that they didn't care. There was like a knowing, but that it didn't matter to them because they came from other planets too. And so this concept of like us, where it's like, oh, did people exist there once? They're like, of course they did. Like, it didn't matter the same way it does to us because they came from somewhere else. So they know that life exists on many other planets and within other solar systems. So it's just what didn't hold the same weight that it does for us. So yeah, they knew.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. So when they wore like those headbands with the gold, and they would like wear the different cycles of the moon on their headbands, like, why did they do that? Was it just for reverence, or was there any healing benefit to do that under the moonlight or the sunlight?
So both. Lots of quite a few people ended up they used it as like jewelry. It became more like that,
okay.
but that's not how it originated. They're just showing me like this is how information gets lost over time. That the original people that created these headbands and used them, it was for exactly what you said. It was for reverence. It was to remind them of where the cycle of the moon was at that time period, and the properties that came with those cycles. And so that is why they started wearing them. It was almost like paying homage to the moon and the specific cycles, and wearing them to remind other people in the area, okay, this is what cycle we're on, so you're either releasing things or you're trying to attract things, and those types of things. You would do spells, you would moon bath. Same with the sun, the reverence to not the sun gods, but just the power of the sun and the healing that comes with the sun. And that is where it originated from. But as time went on, many people sort of lost that idea. It's like they're showing me it's like Christmas, and now we associate it so much with like Santa Claus instead of just like the properties of like giving and loving and receiving.
Right.
So that's what ended up happening. It sort of got mutated, but the reason, the significance is, again, just a tangible reminder of the beautiful properties that come with the sun and the moon, and harnessing those and be reminded to do that. And that when you wear those headpieces, that the glint of the moon's rays or the sun rays off of them and onto other substances around you, other people, the earth itself, that there's some benefit to that too, and like a sharing of that light and spreading of that light further.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. Okay. All right, interesting. Okay, hold on one second. I'm just gonna pull up my other question. Okay. Well, did Egypt gods really rule then? Like, were they in Egypt? Were there gods that really ruled for thousands and thousands of years? Like, some people say Thoth ruled for thousands of years.
So there are people that influence for thousands of years. The idea of like rule isn't. They don't want to say influence, but there's some extraterrestrials that came here, and they were swayed by sort of the love that was like shone down on them, because like from where they came from at home, their home planet, they were just like everybody else, but on Earth they were revered as gods, and some let it get to their heads and had ego associated with that, and were only supposed to come for like a finite period of time, but ended up not wanting to go back home, because back home they weren't applauded the same way, and so they stayed here way longer than they ever should have, because they wanted to keep feeding their ego and they loved being applauded that way. So when you hear of gods that ruled for that long, it was more that they were influenced and just hung around here. Again, not primarily, some because they enjoyed sharing knowledge and seeing the growth of humanity, and some because it was feeding their inner sense of like the ego. So.
Okay. Really quick, going back to Mars, was it depicted anywhere in any hieroglyphs?
I'm seeing that there's hieroglyphs in Egypt of Mars, but in Atlantis, it was more of these like parchment type papers, like posters, but way more beautiful, put on the walls. I'm not seeing like a hieroglyph in Atlantis of Mars, but there are references to it in Egypt, they're saying.
Who really was Horus?
So they're saying go back onto some of your other sessions that we've discussed that, but they're not wanting to really like get into it again today for some reason. And I don't know why that is. Right. And I don't remember what we talked about in the past.
I know.
So I can't explain.
Well, I asked if the Atlanteans were the followers, why they were the followers of Horus, but they said they had like similar beliefs. So I'm just wondering, like, who was Horus just a belief, like a religion, because, or was it like an actual god, like an actual ET?
There's a literal block here today. I can feel like
Okay,
this energy, and it's
that's
like
all right.
blocking
Maybe
it.
I
That's
did
so
ask.
weird.
Okay,
So
maybe I did
weird.
ask about before. Okay, that's fine. Okay, let's see. What about the Venusians? Like, all right. I guess what I'm curious is like for the Atlanteans, what did Venus like? Did the Venusians ascend? Kind of thing. Like, what's the deal with Atlantis and Egypt and the Venusians? Are they here for the divine feminine? Like, I don't know.
So they're saying that the Venus, that planet, and that the embodiment of that energy is very feminine, but that the similarity between all, so the Egypt and Atlantis and the Venusians, is that they're not all of them, but most of them, they had the ability. They're showing me that we all do, but that there were large numbers of each of those cultures at certain times that had really been able to access in their mind higher knowledge and a connection to source, and that is the biggest similarity there. And they're linking it back to the Mayans and how they also were able to spiritually, mentally, emotionally, like advance that way. And so when you look at the connection between all of these cultures, that it is that, and they can go one of two ways: that you can advance and go back to source, which what happened with the Mayans, or you can advance and you can splinter off and start using your knowledge in purposes that end up not being very good. And that it's essentially the Venusian energy, there seem to be many, many, many more that harnessed the knowledge and used it in very peaceful, beautiful ways, more like the Mayans did, instead of having it sort of go down the path that Atlantis or Egypt might have.
Wait, so did they ascend, or what? Like, how were they in Atlantis, or how did they relate to everything? I'm curious.
I'm feeling like they had more of like an energy that was like on Earth, but not an incarnation, that they stayed more in their planetary orbit and that they influenced from afar, but that they didn't incarnate here like you would have seen Egyptians and Atlanteans and build these like civilizations, that they had their own civilization on their own planet, but they sent almost like feminine energy from that planet, again, to try and help Earth go in the right direction, because they could see that sort of the masculine energy was taking over. But I'm not seeing that they came to Earth and built like a civilization of people here.
Were they behind the Sisterhood of the Rose? Like, were they instrumental in
yes,
that?
they're saying, yes, Sarah. I love when that happens, when you say something, it's like, we were waiting for you to ask this question. Yes, 100% yes. So they were saying that they sent a lot of their energies to those women, and that they were like telepathically communicating, and just, again, the need to keep that sacred knowledge, the divine feminine, should never be suppressed, and that the power there needed to, always be maintained, even if it needed to be hidden, but that the knowledge that came with it and the way that you can harness the feminine energy that was heavily influenced from them. Yes.
And like harness the feminine energy, does that mean like create with the womb, like tantra, like just, like stuff like that, like feminine intuition, just all those things? Or is there anything else?
So they're saying that even just like our thought processes and like the synapses in our brains, that we just process information differently, including emotions, and that just leaning into that, because even women, we have had our emotions and our decision-making skills influenced by the masculine agenda, and that we need to soothe. They're showing me like almost calm those, like our nervous systems again, because our nervous systems are out of whack, they're saying, because we have been, again, functioning more in this masculine dominated sphere, and we need to calm our systems now and realign with the feminine energy and allow that softer but yet very strong and confident energy to come through. We have felt it bubbling for some time, but felt like it still needed to be suppressed. But we need to let go of that fear and bring forth the power that comes with being a woman, and step into that again and allow men to see the value that we bring, and also not care if they don't.
I love it. Okay. Wow. All right. Interesting. I just forgot my question. I had like another question about that. Okay. Are we going into the golden age of Atlantis again? Like, is that what's happening now, or no?
No, they're saying sometimes there's too much. Okay, there's like, they want me to be careful how I'm phrasing this, because there's a lot to be learned from the past, but they're also saying that not everything has to be connected to the past or brought forward, and that Atlantis kind of had their time, and that we need to step into our own golden era that is separate from Atlantis now. And so they did their thing and they had their opportunity. And can we learn from their experience? Yes. But we are now creating our own path forward, and our golden era is ours alone.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. All right. So, okay. Do they have any like advice for that? I mean, I know it's probably just all the same stuff, but is there anything different they want to share with that?
So I feel like we might have touched this on the past too, but this is actually one that they're want me to say again. It's interesting because Horus, they're like, not today, but this, they're like, they're showing me again these headpieces, and that they want people to, they really want this to happen, for this to come forth. And again, the reason is when we talk about the golden era, they're showing me just this, the representation of the sun on these hammered spheres, like, and headbands, and having people again recognize the connection and the importance to connecting in with the energy of the sun, and then the cooler properties of the moon. And they want people to wear this, and they're showing me that, you know, more jewelry is coming out with moons and suns. Like, it's sort of was happening in the 90s underground, and now it's making it come back with jewelry, but they want more of it. They're showing me, like, we want people to have these headpieces again. So when you look at something that happened in Atlantis, they're like, that's something you could take from that and bring forward, and it would be very valuable, because they want this representation for people to visually see that, you know, it's like saying we understand that there is such a connection to Mother Earth, to what's above and below, and connecting with the properties that we can see and not see, and that we acknowledge that we don't know it all, but we are open to learning, and that all comes sort of like symbolically through these headpieces. And they're showing me that there will be a time, like I'm almost seeing like a New York City where it's a little bit smoggy, but the sun is like permeating that smog, and people are walking around with these headpieces, and it is because of the smog and the way that the sun's filtering through, it's very much this like golden glow that you're talking about. And people will be wearing these headbands, and that the more and more that we connect with the supporting systems and energies there to help us, even things like the smog, the negative environmental things that have happened will start to diminish, even just by paying reverence to Mother Earth and things that can help us. So they want me to raise the headpieces again.
Okay, cool. Are we headed to become like a galactic nation? How would that even be possible? I'm not sure, but are we like, is that where we're headed now?
So we are headed to speaking more freely with our galactic partners and those that are looking out for us, that there is still a ways to go before we would be considered a galactic nation, but we will be more open to having galactic entities, extraterrestrials, sitting on council in parliament. Those times are coming that they will be able to be more open about who they are and be revered, and that their knowledge will be considered in decisions that we make, and that they have a connection, obviously, to the greater, galactic federations, to, to political systems beyond our planet. And so those individuals will connect in with them. But as far as functioning, more completely in line with that idea of thinking, we're not quite there yet, but we are making baby steps towards it.
Is it true that it's part of some kind of negative agenda to tell humans that that the Galactic Federation or whatever is going to help them become a galactic civilization and go off planet? Because wouldn't a person who has the DNA that's connected with the Earth get weak? Like, is that a negative agenda to kind of promote the gray agenda, like to bring people back into like weak bodies, or is that not true? Is that just total BS?
It's not resonating really strongly, but what they are clearly saying is that, not every, just like on Earth, not every galactic being is here for our greater benefit. And that's a battle that's happening all the time. And so there will be individuals who try to influence in a negative way, but the galactic individuals who are here for our highest good are aware of them and are, doing what they can to fight them off. So we don't have to be...
You don't have to worry. Like, I mean, is it true like that if it's not like, not really a good idea to become a galactic civilization away from Earth? Is that true? Like, I mean, when there's people that want to, like, in general promote, like, okay, let's go off planet and stuff, is that negative?
So they're saying that there is, again, it's this duality and this need for negative and positive, and that there's an overlap in all of those energies. But they're saying there's no need to leave Earth because we're doing everything we can to advance you to this new Earth, and that the old Earth will be, what's going to happen there is going to happen. And they're showing me that some of the things they're talking about, or even thinking in your mind's eye right now about these galactic influences, they are going to coalesce with humans that want to harness and latch onto more negative entities and have a vision for the Earth that is very exploitive, and that those people will be staying in the 3D, but that there are, those of us that will shift up into the higher dimensions, and our planet will be saved, and that then there's no need to want to go to another planet. But we will, they say, not in mass exodus, but just for learning, that we will be more capable of traveling to other solar systems and communicating even through our mind's eye, telepathically with them, and, learning from one another. But there's not going to be a need for mass exodus from our planet for those of us that make the shift. For those for people that stay in the 3D and things get so terribly dire, there will be an agenda here where people will say, well, then, join me and come with me and I can get you off this planet. Those types of things will be happening. But for those of us that are able to make the shift, there's no need to leave Earth.
Well, will those be nefarious? Like, so say there's like this is an example. Say there's a super negative person who's just really, really like negative and mean, and they're in the 3D, right? But they are broadcasting, hey, the Galactic Federation told me that they're going to come and then we're going to be a spacefaring nation, civilization, and they said we could go with them. Would they be attracting like a negative group that wants some people to go with them? I guess that's what I'm wondering.
They'll be attracting lost souls. I'm seeing people that are confused.
Are those negative?
Yeah, they're
okay, got it.
The individuals that are doing the sort of leading of they're almost showing me like cattle, like they're the leaders. They are negative, but they have their own agenda that is just, again, not in a line with this beautiful source energy. They're kind of stepping away from that, and they can attract people who aren't strong in their beliefs or listening to their personal intuition and aren't honoring their connection to source, so they're more easily swayed. And especially when things get really terrible here on Earth, people are like, there's going to be a collapse of society as we know it, and people that, like, you know, it's so awful, and I'm so worried for like elderly people that have like, they have worked really hard their whole lives and like invested in social security systems and all this, and it will collapse. And essentially they're showing me the rug is pulled out from underneath their feet, and one of two things will happen. You'll either bond together with other humans to form like a way to navigate it in a positive way, or you will be enveloped and drawn to allowing someone else to try and help you. And so they're showing there's just a lot of confusion, there's a lot of anger, and people that are in those states will be easier to be sort of enveloped into the agendas of people like you're describing.
Okay, that's really helpful to know. Thanks. Okay. Just, I think I only have a couple more questions. Root canals. I was like in Egypt, and the dentist told me all root canals are terrible and that you should remove them. If you have a root canal, is it true? Like, you need to hurry up and get your root canal removed?
So right away I heard that root canals aren't good, but I'm trying to get a better understanding of why that is. And they're showing me that
go ahead.
So they're showing me that it's essentially like a foreign object that is, there's like some sort of foreign body, that there's like a concern there about it staying in your system, and that they're showing that it actually is better sometimes just to have the tooth pulled versus going through these procedures. So did you want to use your experience, and I can build on that?
Well, I have one, and Joe said my son has one. So, like, do I need to remove mine?
So I'm getting a message that I'm going to learn something about this that I haven't yet, but that this is interesting because I've been very curious about this too. I've been bringing some of this stuff up to my sister and just saying that, like, intuitively there feels like there's something wrong with this root canal. So I just had my first one like 2 years ago.
That's why I was curious, because I know you just got dentistry and I didn't know what you got. So, okay, go ahead.
Well, I had there was something intuitively telling me that this wasn't the right thing. And I actually did some pendulum work on this myself the other day, just asking, like, should I just have the tooth pulled? And it came back with a resounding yes. But, like, medically, I'm just like, but how do I go in and say that? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So they're saying that there's going to be more learning, but they're clear that they're very clear that the root canals are not good for us, but that in another session, or just like in the next like month or so, some information is going to come to me that I'm going to be able to share with you. So that's all I know, but they're not good, but I guess they're saying stay tuned.
Okay, like, how long can you have one for, like, until you have to remove it? I mean, I've had mine like a couple years, like maybe. Oh,
and they say that people have had them for many. Some people have had them for many years, but the longer they're in there, it's not like a quick, necessarily a quick thing for everybody, but they're almost showing me it's like a slow toxic release of, like, essentially toxins, like, through this implant somehow, or
okay.
yes, and so it is affecting our health. And the minute that it's removed, they say your body can start to heal, because right now it's like constantly fighting off something to do with these root canals. But when they're removed, that your body is like breathing a sigh of relief, essentially. It's like, thank you. And now I can move on to healing your other systems instead of focusing on this darn tooth issue. So more to come, but yeah, they're not good.
Oh, can I get it removed like in a year? Do I have to get it removed right now? Oh my God.
No, it's like you don't have to get it removed right now, but just know that there will be more information coming out about this, and that you should work towards removal eventually. But it's not, again, it's sort of a slow toxic process. So it's not like you have to get it removed tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Okay. What is the liquid metal that was found underneath Petra? And then that's probably
they're saying, and I have watched this show. I just have to try to figure out what the name is of it. Something frog. Oh gosh, what is the show? I saw a few episodes of this show. It's with this individual who lives in like a desert area. I'll have to think about this, Sarah. But the reason I'm thinking of the show, because they're showing me that this liquid metal, they're showing me exactly what it looks like, because it exists on this person's land too, and it's like a malleable metal that actually could be used for a multitude of things, including as an energy source. And so it could turn into a liquid, it could be a solid, like in a solid state, and you could put this chunk of solid state matter almost into, like, use it almost like a crystal to like energize things. You could pour it almost like you could alchemize gold. They're showing me like almost when gold is heated, that's sort of the consistency of what it looks like, and that you could make it into like what almost would look like jewelry, but was actually used again as like an energy source.
Was it used in Atlantis? I guess that's what I want to know.
Yes, it was in Atlantis. It was in Atlantis because, again, of the extraterrestrial influence. This isn't something that's native to Earth. This came from other planets. It has traveled through various parts of Earth and been like passed through from extraterrestrial influence or extraterrestrial landing of spacecraft that carried it. But yes, it was in Atlantis. It has been in Egypt, and it's in this like place. I'll tell you, if you can look it up and you can see exactly what it looks like. I can't remember the name of this show, but yeah.
How did the Atlanteans use it? And then that's my final question.
They're showing me that they melted it down, or not melted it. You don't melt it down, but you like heat it up so that it's malleable. And then they poured it into these almost, it looks to be like a test tube, and created these rods. And they placed these rods into almost like, they're showing me like a grid system of like power. So they used it to almost like as like a power source for the city, essentially. And so it has a lot of properties and different ways it can be used, but Atlanteans essentially used it as like a power source, what I'm being shown.
And do you know what type of metal this is?
No, I don't. All I know that is that it's not native to Earth.
Do you know what extraterrestrials brought it by any chance?
They're just telling me it was not tossed. I'm like, was it tossed? And
Okay.
they're saying no. They're saying no, it wasn't. But I don't know beyond that. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Do you have any final messages?
They're laughing. They're like, any messages that we would have had, Sarah already gave them when you two were talking just about how you guys are ascending, how you are quickly growing, how you are learning your lessons. They're like, you guys talked about it in your first 15 minutes together. They're like, you're solving the world's problems on your own. And so they're like, any messages that we would have had, you've already shared with each other. And they said they just love when we get together because our energy is just infectious, and that they obviously are aware that we're going to be calling upon them and having these sessions. And so they're showing me they get their popcorn and they just settle in and listen to our conversation before we get started.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
of course they do.
Pretty cute. Yeah.
That is really funny. Like, I just picture that. It's like, well, I mean, how do they feel like about all these lessons we're learning? Like, what the heck happened with that lady today? Like, what the heck? I don't know how this is.
So they're saying specifically to that, what they want to say is that, again, this has to go between the balance of negative and positive, and lightness and darkness. And so you are spreading light. And so, in retrospect, at the other side, there's always going to be someone that tries to counteract that energy. And that is what she's doing. So when you bring forth and spread information that's beneficial for the advancement of humankind, it is natural for someone to try to counteract that. And then that is what she's doing. She's like, your opposite, essentially. And so just recognize that, and that there's a reason for that. And again, it's the option. It's providing the option for people to choose. Are they going to resonate with the information you're sharing, or are they going to step more into the negative energy and resonate with what she's saying? And it really does have to do with the advancement of people's own personal growth and souls. And so keep spreading your light, because there will be many, many people that will be attracted to you and your information. But essentially, she is counteracting yours, and that all has to do with the duality of energies.
Should I take it off my channel or leave it out? Because I don't know. I mean, I already told her. Like, I don't know.
They said it's okay to. Oh, are you asking about like just information that you posted that just was your general teaching?
No. Like, I mean, is this about the lady that I did the interview with today, or is this just my hater? I mean,
they're talking about your hater. The individual today.
Yeah.
Your hater is what they're speaking of. The individual today, they're saying that you can counteract what she did by just posting something about how you, again, are feeling like we all have the ability to heal ourselves. And again, just spread that message in people, so people, again, hear that coming from your mouth, but that you don't necessarily need to take it down, because it doesn't represent you. It shines more of a negative light on her. And people that are becoming more intuitive and listening to their own intuition will feel sort of that ick when she says that comment. And, those people that are attracted to her and think that they need to learn through her, there's a lesson to be learned still for those individuals as well.
Okay. Thank you so very